Hello and welcome to Flame On. I am Bryan and I am your host this evening to guide us through the world of what we're calling the Rainbow Spotlight. I didn't make this title up. I apologize in advance if anyone thinks it's horrible. But it's what you need sometimes to put on these things. So I am here with a dear friend who I have had the pleasure to talk to at least once before for a fantastic interview on Comic Bears. Jack Foster, welcome to Flame On.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you very much for a long-time listener, first-time caller.
Well, I appreciate that. No, so again, if you really like what we're doing, if you want to know more about Jack's work, we did a great deep dive with Comic Bears back in September, I think. Sounds about right.
Gosh,
August?
Yeah.
Time is.
I think I was promising the next issue was going to be out in like 3 or 4 months, and that's like a year.
Oh boy, yeah, no. Go back to Comic Bears on Facebook, you'll find it. It's in there, and it's on our YouTube channel there, and all that stuff. But
oh yeah, I had my jaunty sailor's hat.
In fact, you did, and I have a red knit cap that you inspired me to buy, though I didn't end up making it. I was going to do a costume this year, and it didn't matter because I wasn't going anywhere. Yeah. But yeah, welcome. So for those who do not know of you, which I'm sure at least a few of our listeners have encountered your work.
Everybody.
No. We did. I think I actually mentioned it and talked about it on Flame On. One of the episodes we talked about things we were interested in, comic books that come out, whatever. Let's talk about you first, and then we're going to talk about Gun, because I know that is something that is, I think, where a lot of people are going to be, like, they're going to love. I know I dug it, and especially because I just finished, volume 2, I guess, right?
Volume 2, essentially, yeah.
Slaughter Ball, I said it right. I won't screw up, I promise. No, I won't. But before we get to that, let's talk about you. Tell me who you are. Tell the listeners about who Jack Foster is.
Oh, man.
Besides the fact that you're a fellow Floridian, which I found out too.
A fellow, expatriated Floridian.
Expatriated Floridian. Recovering.
And I got to tell you, for this election, we can talk politics. For this election cycle, I was really banging the drum to get Florida. Because, if Florida had gone for Biden, it would have just been over at 9 o'clock.
Yes. So it would have been a lot nicer of an evening for me.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm glad with how it all ended before that. That first day was a bitter pill. But yeah, I was really banging the drum. And after the last election, I was actually in Florida hoofing it for Hillary on election night and flew out, luckily, the next day. And it was just like, fuck you, I'm never coming back. I fucking hate this state. And then I was let bygones be bygones. I still have a lot of friends and families that I love there. And so this election, I was like, you've got one last chance, Florida. Bring it home. We are quits. And then, of course, they did what Florida does. But you know what?
Okay, so same story, kind of. I was in Florida living when Hillary ran, and I did volunteer for her as well. Specifically the day of the election, went and door knocked. And I don't know how familiar you are with the Orlando area, but it's this little, cookie cutter community called Baldwin Park.
Yeah.
And it was depressing because I was going house to house. As a door knocker canvassing, you're going to usually the party you're affiliated with. So registered Democrat households, at least the last time they were updated. And not more than one or two of them had Trump signs up in their windows and had obvious proof that even if that was still them, they were not on board with Hillary. In fact, quite the opposite. So that day was depressing going into it. Now, for this election, I didn't volunteer other than I did do the letter writing and social media and donations and stuff. Yeah. But so you did a little bit of that too this year?
I did. We did a bunch, but my partner and I did 300 just for South Carolina.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that was 5 a night over 6 weeks, and now we're. It was so nice to stop doing them because it's you feel obligated to do your civic duty, but at the same token, you're that's half an hour every night, and now we're starting up again for Georgia.
Are you doing phone banking, letter writing, both? What are you doing?
I don't like phone banking.
Yeah, me neither.
I don't have the personality for it.
Yeah, it sucks. It's hard.
My partner. His mother, who is, she's retired teacher from Queens, Yeah. We owe the election to her. Actually, she
Yeah, that's awesome.
She's great at phone banking. Like, she gets on there, she talks to these people, she kind of like, she knows how to like speak their language. So like, to each what they can do, I guess. And like, I can make very artfully decorated postcards. So I feel like that's my contribution. But yeah, the phone banking I'm no good at.
Did you ever do door knocking, canvassing?
I did. So I did for Florida. That was the first time. And same as you, you're going to registered Democrats, and you're actually going to the at-risk ones who haven't voted for a while, and you're like, please vote. And they yelled at me and hated Hillary. And
oh, wow.
It was like, they're both awful. I hate both of them. Like that sort of, that message, which came from both the left and the right, really penetrated in that market, like that, that one. And also, I do one little thing, because I was in like really impoverished regions. I was in Tampa, not far from Orlando, really impoverished sections of town, and like I went to one. It was a real small little lot with like nothing, just a tiny little lot, and there was like one tree, and on the tree there was a sign that said like no trespassing. And like, I really think that the 2016 was the anger vote. Yeah. And like, being able to sort of see that stuff in practice, which isn't to say that like there's anger everywhere, and not to say that it's, you know, it's restricted only to lower income or restricted only one part of the world, but only to say like, when you see like people with very little feeling like that's going to be taken away too.
Yeah. Like, you see now with a lot of the Trump supporters in the rural states, like, they're not people of, again, gross generalizations here, right? Of means. They're people who are really just struggling. They may be small business owners. They may work for factories, farms, whatever. And they're the ones who are the most vehemently for Trump. I think not because of Trump, but because they don't want the Democrats or the libs or whatever they call us to take that away, because they have this real perception. And I know here in Washington, and I think you guys are dealing with this too, our COVID rates are insane, right? So the lockdowns are being reinstated. Small businesses are basically being told or small restaurants, bars, and retail are being told you need to not have either any indoor capacity or limit your indoor capacity, that so much so that they can't make, ends meet, they can't pay the bills. And that's hard because the government is the one telling them that. And it just reinforces any of this idea that they're, always trying to take higher taxes, restrictions, all this stuff. And it's hard. It's a really hard argument to make to these people. And I'm sympathetic. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I'm like, I'd rather us all live and have, our elders not locked in. My father is locked in his house, can't leave, can't do anything. Like, cannot leave, because if he goes out, he is gonna,
Yeah,
God knows.
No. I mean, I think. Well, here's the all right, Brian. May I be that bitch?
Please. You always have permission to be that bitch.
No, I rarely ever am I that bitch, but I'm about to be that bitch. They fucking should. Like, what should have happened is that all these places should have closed, and they should have put a financial backstop up, and they should have just sort of like put it so that we weren't in the position that we're in now. And California, like, I'm in Los Angeles. We were an epicenter from like almost day one. We went lockdown in March, but then like they kind of started rolling stuff back in this insane way, not because of what was actually healthy or not. Like, people were doing outdoor seating in restaurants, but that's like they're walled up in these sort of like, it's the exact same thing. Not because of what was financially made sense, but just because of what they were going to bail out and what they weren't. And even a state with as much, California is a very rich state. Even they can't completely. You need the federal government to do that unilaterally, and and that is sort of like, that is why we're where we are now. And may I just get on my? Oh God, I'm an asshole.
Please, no. You and I could probably do this for hours. I'm fine with it.
No, but like on Facebook, on Instagram, anywhere where I see social media, I see so many people like doing a very good job of pretending we're not in the middle of a pandemic. And that to me is the key problem, is that like we already have a tendency like in America to put a Disney face on and like everything is okay, everything is fine. And that has only worked against us. And I think when you and I see it from like micro level all the way up to, the people who should be sort of setting the tone, and that
So
is
much.
the kind of that's why we're like having these weird conversations about like, well, what do we do for Thanksgiving? You don't fucking go. Like, I'm sorry.
Obviously.
Yeah. Like,
I mean,
go ahead.
No, it's to us, and I think a lot of people are actually they get it. But the problem is, like, Florida's a great example again. Let's just shit all over Florida today, right? They totally have. I have friends in Florida and family in Florida who are daily tempted by other friends and family. My mother, her husband and her husband's family has largely taken the COVID thing like not great. And surprisingly, if they've gotten sick, they were asymptomatic because they'd ever, whatever. But they've had a couple scares where, like, one of them thought they were sick, and then my mom had just come over. This was for Father's Day for their dad, and my mother, who's in her 70s, and her husband, who's in his 70s, were there not wearing masks. So they're in their family. It's a bubble, right? But these people aren't taken seriously. To their credit, to my mom's credit, this year for Thanksgiving, they said, we are not going over to their place because we know they're not careful. And even if they were careful, it's just a bad idea. So you see that here and there, but then you see the social media promo and you see just friends of ours who are there. And, we're going to talk about it here in a minute, but, Parliament House shut down. And so everybody had to go to the last dance. And so even though you're like, oh my God, what are you doing? You're putting yourself in a bad situation here. People had to go. I don't even know if I was in Florida and I had good friends and family and it was Parliament House and they were, I don't know, to be honest, if I would have been able to say no because I was there and I had friends that were going. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's tough.
I think across the board, like in the array of things that you can and cannot do, people make their own choices as far as like what they're sort of like, willing to, like, I will do this, but I won't do that. I mean, everyone and you have to. That's part of like you can't.
Yes.
Very few people, like, can just live in an isolated bubble. But the part of that I find so frustrating is that like Parliament House should not put that option out there. You know what I mean? One of the things that about Parliament is it's an old hotel. There's a courtyard. Yeah.
And the thing that they could have done, they never did before their untimely demise. They could have said the indoor bars. Well, they did they had a pretty good run. 45 years is not bad for a gay bar, hotel, resort, right? Motel, I should be clear. But no, they could have said, you know what? We can't have the dance floor. We can't have the theater. We can't have any of the indoor stuff. Yeah, the hotel room's fine, obviously, because it's whatever. But the courtyard is big enough that they could have turned that whole fucking thing into an outdoor, and they did somewhat. The pool stage, there's stuff. They moved all their drag out onto the main pool stage. I mean, they did certain things. But they still kept the indoor stuff because, well, it's Florida and it's going to rain. So they couldn't, or at least they chose not to. Anyway, I want to save the Parliament thing because I do want to talk to you about that because you have connection there as well as I do. So, but before we do that, let's circle the wagons back here because we still have to talk about you.
Oh, my favorite.
And the fact that you rose up through, as a lot of creators do, through the comic book store experience, working in a comic shop.
I did.
Tell me about what that was like for you. I'm assuming that was in Florida as well.
It was Wilson's Bookstore, which I think up until like maybe a year and a half ago, was still operational. I got to like the first issue of my comic. This is like total dream come true stuff, but the first issue of my comic they had on the racks at the comic shop that I worked at, and that was like, yeah, man, that's like
living the dream there, man. That's awesome.
A lot of this industry is very tough, and there's a lot of like getting boot in your face. So the wins that you get, like you have to really enjoy, and that was a magic one. So yeah, no, I was. So this is back. I'm 46. So this is back in it was my job in my 20s. So it's right at the time when like I think the indie movement, or it's the golden age of indie comics. You got Straight Bullets is coming out. Scud the Disposable Assassin.
Yep.
Let me. I have to look in an odd way so I don't reveal my bald spot. Dan Cloa's, Chris Ware, like a lot of the stuff that really came to sort of like give like these support structure to the industry to be taken seriously. Like all that stuff was coming through the pipeline at that time. At the same time as like the X-Men and everything, we sold Death of Superman. So like I was actually the guy doing the ordering. The guy who ran my boss, Jeff Morris, great guy. Still in touch with him. Surrogate father. He kind of just got sick of comics. I think this happens to a lot of comic shop owners where they love it, they get into it, and then 15 years later they're financially locked into it and they fucking hate comics. Which
well,
makes it hard for everybody.
And you're right. And the industry has changed and morphed so much during that time that they probably loved parts of it and then got just so disillusioned, right? So
yeah, no, I mean, I think like for a lot of reasons, I think the industry changes in a lot of ways. Just and it's hard to always stay, invigorated in it. And then like I also think that like with some exceptions, these are businesses that are thriving in thrift in strip malls. Like they're not getting rich doing this. They're doing it because they love it, and like that sustains you for the first 5 years. But like years 6 through 15, that is hard, and it's a lot of work, and the industry doesn't treat them particularly well. Like they don't make it easier for them either. So only to say he had gotten bored and jumped out, and then I got to do the ordering, and like I got to sort of like try and bring a lot of indie stuff into the store. So I also saw how retail struggles with indie. Like you can put it up, but that doesn't mean people will buy. And I would do everything. I would like talk the stuff up to the customers. I would put up little like about this comic stuff. We had like, this was also the dawn of like holofoil like gift wrap. So I would put like holofoil like page, like book rackers and do everything to sell that stuff. And it's hard. These guys, these weekday warriors, Wednesday warriors, they love the thing that they love, and they're happy with that. Like they're already spending $60 a week. They're not looking to take on new ballast. So it's a great education. I think like that should be Comics 101 is dealing with retail. And also like, how do you then as a publisher talk to the retailer?
Right. And then my friend, A Comic Shop in Orlando wasn't my first store, but certainly was the one I became closest affiliated with. And my friend Aaron Holland, who runs that store, I saw him as that retailer working with the industry to better sell their books. Because that's the thing. Ultimately, and this is still true largely, the retailers are the people on the front line selling your books. If you don't have a healthy retail relationship, then you have a problem. And yeah, there are retailers who you need to help and be better with because they do higher volume and they can sell more. And then there are the ones that are kind of out there and they're doing what they're doing. They're whatever. But to still not like focus on that relationship. And one of the things I know with comics now is a lot of the shifting and the diamond to lunar and all this other stuff. A lot of retailers are just like done with it. Like they are ready to just be like, well, don't let the door hit you with a good Lord split you, DC, because so yeah, no, it's critical. So I mean, yeah, you're right. It's a great education. You learn so much, and I think it helps you then prepare you for becoming a creator and someone who, in your case, not just a creator, but someone who had to like from the ground up distribute, to build those relationships by yourself. I mean, all of that, right?
Oh, the hard way. What's the Frost poem? I saw two paths in the wood. One involved a lot more emailing.
Yep.
I think that, like, look, I tell this story all the time, and forgive me if I already told it on comic book fairs. But when I was in high school, I made my own comic. I went around to my classmates and said, like, hey, I'm selling this comic. I had like a little sample. I was like, if you want it, let me know. I took orders. I went home that night. I remember those yellow signs in 5-cent copies in like 7-Elevens and
yeah.
So they would all have, they would have like, beer, Coke, blah, 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 and copy, So I would print it out copies. The I printed the interior was like 8.5 by 11 folded, and then the cover. I love this innovation. It's the Foster fold, but it would be like regular, and then like the little bit of overlap where a legal size is like 4 inches longer. I would flap that over so it had a nice little, like that's
awesome,
the gay touch. And then I took it the next day and I sold it for $1, and I sold out. I printed like I think 5 over. I made $80, which like for me in high school I was the richest guy in the world.
Yeah,
and like. Every stage of that, making the comic, going out, selling it, giving it to people, like the commerce, I loved every part of it. And it would have been nice to sort of like, I told the story before, Gunn was initially a pitch to DC. He was supposed to be Count Vertigo. DC did not care. And I was like, I like the story, so like, we're going to change that name, and now it's Gunn. So it would have been nice to sort of just right off the bat sort of get the golden ticket and go and get the glass elevator and take over a Wonka world. But not having that, like, it presented a lot of challenges, and it was really, it was frustrating in a lot of ways. But like, I love every step in it. I love the selling of it. I love the commerce of it. I love connecting with the retailers to try and get it in their stores. I love connecting with the buyers. I love it's that same thing when I was in high school as an adult. Also, can I just go on a little bit here? During the election, one of the guys who read the book, he lives in Nebraska, kind of a younger guy. Like I think maybe from like in farm country. Like I think like he goes out his door and he hears cows. But he's a really smart kid. He runs this. It doesn't matter. He just like a smart kid. Like you think like, oh, you're one of those people. I can relate to this. I think you can relate to this. Where you're sort of like you're nested in a slightly more conservative world, but you see that there's a bigger world out there, and you reach out into it. And so like. He has been he's been a great friend of the book, and just like with a lot of the people who like the book, like friend me on Facebook. Like if you shoot me an email, I will reply. Like if you ask like what are the order, like I'm the guy who does all that. I'm the guy at the other end of the email. So like you are talking to me, and like if anybody wants to like talk more, I love that. So like during the election, like Nebraska had this weird thing where like for whatever reason it has like tiny electoral votes that don't go the rest of the way to the state.
I didn't know that at all until this election. I knew Maine did some weird thing like that, but I didn't know Nebraska. Love it.
So like when I saw that they had the one, and when it looked like that would be the one that was the tiebreaker, I messaged him and I was like, because we're friends on Facebook, and I was like, hey dude, is that your? And he's like, yes, we're so happy. And then he sent me like memes and stuff that other people like his age were doing in Nebraska, like chest thumping, because like for the first time they felt enfranchised. They felt like their vote really did matter, and like the enthusiasm. They were calling themselves Nebraska, and like they were just so excited about it, and it was so beautiful to see. And like I know that guy because of the comic. Like that, the comic has like brought a lot of like one of the guys who was at my first convention. I went to his wedding. Like
what?
No, for real. Like, the comic is sort of like at the scale at which it is, I'm able to sort of be involved with people that read it. I mean, of course, you want the audience to grow, and then it does get to a point. I think like bands have this thing where like when they're just doing a small gig and they can know everybody, and then you get so big, good problem to have. But I love the scale of it right now. I love that I can interact with the people who like the book, and I don't like the fact that they can sort of like also interact with me and tell me like, hey, you're 6 months late.
Oh no. You get that? Oh,
I have one guy, I love him, Everett. I love him. We'll never speak ill of him, but he is on my ass. Every post I make that is not about Gunn, he's like, when is number 7 coming out?
Oh my God, you're like George R.R. Martin, except in more, smaller scale there. I love that. Yeah. But I mean, no, you're right, because accountability from a fan base is really hard because, like you said, you can manage it now. It's a small elite club of us that have like really enjoyed what you've done and really want more. And there's so many benefits to having that rabid, small, diehard group, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, when it starts to get bigger and you have that problem, it's a little less nice. It's a little less cozy, and then you've got random strangers on the internet calling you a horrible person, doxing you. I mean, I don't know, whatever the crazy people do these days.
No, I mean, all great problems to have. And also only to say like, the comic that I make now is not different from the comic I made in high school, and I love that symmetry. And of course, I'm working hard to make the comic grow, and it hopefully will, get to, it would be nice if I didn't have to do all the shipping and I wasn't the guy sending the emails when you like where.
Yeah. Do you involve your partner at all? Does he pitch in at all?
Of course.
Of course he does.
Well, this is funny. I can say this because he's not here. A couple last week or two, you know how like your partner will have a dream that you've done something that makes them mad, and they wake up mad at you, and you hear about it all day. So my partner, Larry woke up and he's like, I'm so mad at you from what you did in the dream. And the thing I did in the dream was we were going over and editing my book, and he had some ideas that he thought were good, and I shot them all down and was a dick about it.
Yep.
So if that gives you any, he's very involved.
That's so I'm helping my boyfriend out, just small things with his stuff. In fact, I was reading his new short story earlier, and I was like starting to he shares like a Google Doc, and I'm like putting little comments in, and then I was like, oh hey, I started it and I did this, and I feel like the first paragraph is kind of rough and it's erotica, so I'm like, there's not a lot of sex, so we were talking about just that, but it's always a delicate thing, because I'm like, look, I really love it and I love being involved in it, but it's also you don't want to come in with the wrong attitude or the wrong and just shit all over stuff that somebody's worked so hard on. And I'm, I get it. And so I'm sure Larry gets that too.
No, actually, I was two things. First of all, Larry made me move to Google Docs so he can make those notes.
I like him already.
There's a lot of people who probably will be making editorial decisions with him that can't do what you can do. You know what I mean? So like on the one hand, like they're the ones who have to be politic and sort of like, I wonder, what about this? And Larry and I like fight about the book because we're both passionate, but you know what, honestly, if I may do a little tangent here. Please. The reason why the issue is taking so long is because I kind of like, usually what happens is I write the script for the book, and then the artwork, which takes a long time, like I just start doing the artwork, and then finally the artwork after several months is done, and I sort of put it all together, and then I send it to my editor and my sort of brain trust, and then they look at it. And we're on issue 7, so for the first 6 issues, that's how it's gone. And my partner, who is one of the brain trust, was like, this is wrong. Like, when we see it, we can't influence any changes because that would mean changes to art, which would take all this time. You need to see it way earlier. Yep. And I was like, no, because then I have to like put in like pencil art, and I like to just skip over that because I'm the guy who I'm doing it all. I can do that. But he has a very valid point. So this issue, we're like, okay, we're going to do it differently. And I did this like kicking my feet, like I don't want to. But I don't know did you watch? Oh gosh, what's the name of it? It's the cruise ship in space.
Avenue 5.
Yeah.
I loved it. I loved it.
Me too. That's the Trump administration writ large.
Ian Nucci, the guy who did that series and did Veep and The Thick of It and all of that. I love his stuff. Yep. Death to Stalin. Oh my God. I played that for my boyfriend not that long ago too, and I'm like, it's funny, but only if you think about it. It's not like, it's not slap. It's anyway.
No, but it's also my favorite line is Steve Buscemi, like, who the fuck would want to live forever?
Some great. Ian Nucci is a very quotable writer for sure. So
we had listened to an interview. My partner actually made me listen to this interview with the guy who's the cruise director. I think his name is Matt. I don't recall his last name.
Yeah, he was in Veep as well and some other stuff. Yeah.
So he was talking about sort of like working on this and how the process is, and he had said, like, I've worked with some other people, and the mark of a competent director or writer is they are not afraid of good ideas. Some people, there'll be a lot of ego, and you'll come in and you'll make a little suggestion, and they'll be like, rah, rah, rah. And as a guy who does a lot of the work for my comic, like, I listen to that. Like don't, I think because it all comes from me, like, I'm the final word, and that nobody is. And also, like it would be nice sometimes to be like, I don't know how to make this work. It's like, come in and fix it. So, like, Larry really sort of like, don't be afraid of good ideas, which I agree with. And then, like, let's sort of let people influence it earlier on, and so we modified the the pandemic had started, so I knew I had a little bit of like, well, who knows what the industry is going to be like. So I was like, well, let's take the time. And then like the script went through a long period of revision, which it never does, and everyone was involved, and everybody could kind of weigh in. And I think like I think it really is like it does sort of level up the work. Yeah. So my point being, what you are doing for your partner is, even if he doesn't say thank you, I know he feels.
Oh no, he's very appreciative. It's and you know that whole there's the no good idea, or there's what's the quote again?
Don't be afraid of a good idea.
Yeah, that's never a problem, which is good because like I've certainly been in situations where I was not as tactful. I have a story that my friends harassed me about when my one good friend made some like Italian food for me, and I was in college, and I don't know, I must have been. I'll blame my low blood sugar. Let's just say that, you know, I needed a Snickers bar, right? And I was like, I just, you know, he asked me for my feedback, and I thought, okay, I'm going to give you my objective feedback on this meal you gave me, and that he prepared and did all the work on. And, you know, I was like, look, I thought it was going to be a little more something. I kind of tried to, like, you know, bad idea, because I didn't have a working relationship with him, and I also didn't think about the context. Now, having said that, other projects, you know, with my, you know, whatever, you can kind of be a little more direct with your notes. You don't have to beat around the bush and do that whole, have you considered, I don't know. I mean, yeah, just like that. Just spitballing here. But like, you just have to feel that out. And I know some people who may have great insight and have very valid criticism and concern. They just don't know how to do it. Or they just come in heavy, or they just don't have the right affect. I mean, all the things. Like, did you watch the Queen's Gambit yet on Netflix?
Oh, yeah. During the election week. So it was the perfect South.
See, now this makes a lot more sense because, like, I like it. It's good. I've always been fascinated with chess, and I've always thought, you know, someday I should really learn how to play that game, even though, I mean, I know how to play it, but, you know, really learn how to play it, right? But the show is, like, other than, like, being very stylized and sort of kind of presenting this, you know, oh, yay, she's a woman playing chess. I mean, it has not done for me what it has done for so many people, where they're like, oh my God, Stephen King was like raving about it being the best thing on TV this year. I'm like, is it though? But it's a nice, straightforward, it's got queer representation. It's got style out the, you know, whatever, like gorgeous shots. Yeah. And as a palliative to the stress of the election, as a foil that sort of lets you, yes, perfect.
Yeah, 100% agree. Here's what I would say. I think that there are a lot of points in that story where, like, okay, she goes to the orphanage. Is she going to get molested? No, that doesn't happen. She gets adopted. Is she going to get molested? No, that doesn't happen.
Right.
So there's a lot of moments of like, do I have to feel weird? And then those things don't happen. And then ultimately she, for like, even for whatever her like flaws are, that she's, I guess, an alcoholic, although she doesn't really hit rock bottom in a way that I have seen in my own life.
She has got an addictive personality, I think is the term, where she will go all in on certain things for better or for worse. But actually the reason I even tangent off to her is her flat affect. She is probably, although I don't think they diagnose her, they don't talk to this, she's probably on the spectrum, you know, Asperger's or some kind of an amount of that. And I work with software engineers, like, you know, that's my thing. So, and you know, even I consider myself like, you know, the tiniest bit on the spectrum, which all my friends laugh and they think, oh, you're insane. That's not you at all. But like, you know, those kind of people, they're in your life. And they have these things they want to share with you about themselves and their opinions and their lives. But the affect, the way they convey that, isn't always dialed into what you expect. And then sometimes it feels like they're punching you in the stomach because there's just no subtlety, nuance, nothing. So, like, you know, that to say the point, you know, it was just that there's this thing. But I'm glad you have a process now and you've improved that process, because that is really, I think you're right. It's the key to leveling up as a professional. To get that input early before you spend all that time. Then you got to, like, you know, rip it apart and it's just anyway.
Which is happening too, by the way. So like, you know, if I could just say one more thing on that, because I read a lot about the making of Star Wars and George Lucas. Do you listen to the You Must Remember This podcast?
I have, yeah. I'm not caught up. I love it. And What's the one on Zippity Doodah and
Oh, yeah.
Song of the South? If you don't listen to anything else, that one is so informative. I had no idea about half that nonsense that went on in that era. And anyway, but yes, yes.
But actually, let me one up you. Her series on Polly Platt, who is she was Peter Bogdanovich's wife. So like his two sort of masterpieces, if you think so, Paper Moon and Last Picture Show. You know, she was involved. She actually sourced both of them. They divorced. She goes on, and then she makes like James L. Brooks' best masterpieces. So like when you look at her career, you realize, the secret sauce in all of these is her. So it's a great series by Karina Longworth. It was really good, and the last episode had me crying. So like, is this
the new one? This is the newest season of her stuff. Okay.
Yeah, it was the best media that came out this year, I think, in 2020. So
really?
Highly recommend it. But Marsha Lucas said the same thing. She's the editor who saved Star Wars. Like it was a mess, and then she came in and sort of fixed it. Also, by the way, she's in New York while he's doing his thing. She's in New York with like Marty Scorsese and she's this really cool chick with this nerd. So she is around for 1 and 2, and then they divorced for 3. And 3 is kind of where people stop telling him no.
Yeah,
and so
he got his little stamp. He got his fucking little stamp that he could go up and be like, approved. It's like, oh my god, dude, fucking serious.
I think for artists, the partnership is so important, and I think it's.
Are you? You're reminding me of something. Are you in any kind of communities for writing or creating? Are you in any active, like a lot of people use Discord or Facebook or whatever, like Twitter, obviously. I mean, are you in any of those to kind of like bounce ideas and sort of share and have a communal experience?
In the absence of cons, a bunch of indie creators like myself have sort of just done a weekly hangout, and then there's like a group chat that we all sort of participate in. That's less about the actual like under the hood how we work. It's more about how do we handle distribution now? What do we do in the absence of? How do you sell stuff without cons? Things like that. Which is also good to have a sounding board. It's been. I'm kind of like in an ivory tower. I don't collaborate. I don't mean I don't collaborate. I am the artist and the writer, so I don't have this other part of the process that I communicate with. I would say kind of an underground book. So I just don't communicate or participate with a lot of creators. And I wish I did. I'm not good at at Comic-Con, I'm not good at going around and introducing myself to people.
Oh, honey, listen, when we get cons again, let me just do that for you, because it's funny. It's it's back to the whole I'm on the spectrum thing. There's something about a show. And, alcohol certainly in the evenings, hanging out at the bar kind of thing too. But just going around and being like, have you met my friend Jack? Oh my God, you're going to love Gunn. It is the best. You need somebody. You need that. No, absolutely.
I think that's true. And I think that's I think if you can get over the barrier, over that first barrier, then it opens up. But either way, my point being, communicating with this group has been very good for me personally. Also, I've been doing been moonlighting with a pod. This isn't why the book is late. Moonlighting with a podcast, Pages and Panels, which is a comic podcast.
That's awesome.
Behind their paywall. The paywall's $1. So when I say behind the paywall, it's not.
Is it Patreon based?
Yeah, so they have a Patreon, and then my segment, which is the greatest comic book of all time that I read this week by Kyle and Jack, rolls off the tongue. So we take a book in alternating weeks. 1 week we'll do an old book, we just sort of introduce to each other, and then the other week we'll do a newer book. And that has got me so a thing that happens for me, not for everybody, but when you're making comics, you get sick of comics, and in the 2 hours of the day when you're not working on comics, you don't want to look at a fucking comic. So years have passed and I haven't been reading, Also, I think the big two they've been shaky for a while.
Yes. No. We could talk about this for a while, I'm sure. Yes, 100% you're right.
No, because there are some bright spots and some great stuff is coming out.
Yes.
Largely not from the big two, but they get it right a few times. But overall, if you had a core franchise that you were locked in on, that has probably just disintegrated. or just become multiple things. I love what Hickman is doing with the X-Men now. I think the X-Men is a total, it's totally great, and I'm glad what he's doing with it. But prior to him, like, it was a disaster.
Yeah,
I mean, a disaster. You know what?
Oh yeah, no. Hickman is the bright point of Marvel for me right now. I moved out here in February. I've dropped everything but X books. The only like kind of exceptions are like the occasional Tom King book. Not that he's occasional; he's always got something, and he's fantastic. But Bendis on the Superman books, I think, is another bright spot. Though again, I'm not caught up. He may have completely gone off the rails.
2 questions: did you follow Bendis onto Legion, or do you like Legion? I don't know.
So I don't, and this is sort of a comic book bears joke, and it's not just comic book bears, but basically the whole dichotomy, right, is you're either a Legion fan or an X-Men fan, and that's not true. But at the same time, when you're young, I think there is certainly this thing that you kind of fall into one mythology or the other more than the other. So Bill Zanowitz is a great example. He is a Legion fan, like knows Legion like cold, but likes the X-Men and follows a lot of it. I am the opposite. I am an X-Men devotee way back, but I also enjoy Legion occasionally. I have not read Bendis's Legion. I don't know if that's been. I did like the Millennium, which is funny if you ever hear him talking about this with Suntress or whoever. He says it like Millennium, and there was actually a moment when John Suntress is like, from Word Balloon, he's like,
"What are you saying?
Are you saying that weird, or is that just how you say Millennium?" And Bendis, like, they have a great relationship. For those of our listeners who've never heard John Suntress talk to Bendis, I mean, it's like the highlight when there's a Bendis tapes for us comic book fans, because Suntress is a great interviewer. Bendis is hilarious. If you ever have a chance to hear him, or even go take one of his classes that I think they're doing online now. He teaches out of one of the Portland schools. But anyway, like, they're great together, and they're just great storytellers. But yeah, that moment, because we're all sitting there like, Millennium? Anyway, so tell me.
What do you think of X of Swords?
All right, so X of Swords, I like. It surprises me, and I think that's why I like it. There have been really bad moments that I thought were garbage. I think it was like the first full episode. So there was like the X Swords Creation, or Ten of Swords. Sorry, Ten of Swords Creation. That was the first one. Good storytelling, world building, whatever. Yep. Then that next issue, which was like, I think Leah Williams for X Factor, but it was just garbage. It was garbage. Storytelling, horrible art wise, everything just
very
garbage.
Uneven.
Yeah, and then the Ben, not Shapiro. Oh God, I almost said Ben Shapiro. Fuck that guy. No, Ben. I can't think of his last name. Anyway, it'll come to me later. He's writing Wolverine.
Yeah.
And his stuff with Wolverine going to hell, and then meeting Solem and all that, great, fantastic.
I'm going to tell you, I was nervous going in because I was like, "Oh, okay, I'll follow it." I was like, "What's this? You know what? I'm going to peek in on Ten of Swords to see what's going on." And then they were like, "Well, there's going to be 10 actual swords, and everyone's going to fight with them." And I was like, "Oh, that's what you're. Oh, we're going to do that." I was like, "Well, now I have to." I mean, knowing that, why would I bail now?
Right.
Wolverine's was the story because he has such a history. I was like, "Oh, this is going to be a slog. It's going to be hard to get through these." And they went so far afield. I completely praised their. The risk taking that they decided with that story.
Like, Wolverine's gone to hell. Like, there was a whole thing that happened like not that long ago where he was in hell and had to get out of hell. So the fact that they were like, "Well, we're going to go back, we're going to do that again," it's a bold choice. It's a bold choice, but it was fun. And Solem is, to me, in my mind, probably the most interesting character. A villain of sorts, but not really, but kind of. Well, and gender is, I don't think he's gender fluid, but I definitely think he's pansexual. Yep. And so that pansexual realness with Wolverine is a delight. So yeah, all of that.
No, it has been a mixed bag, and I like.
So are you caught up?
I am aware of the spoiler. Well, we shouldn't get into
Well,
that.
okay, yeah, we won't spoil anything, but like, so had they had dinner? We're talking broad generalities. Have they had the dinner yet?
No, I'm not there yet.
The dinner. So there's an interlude. Let's put it out there. There's an interlude at the Starlight Citadel.
Yeah.
Where there is a dinner scene, and it's over multiple issues, and that's why it was again a different choice, because you just think event book, but that's not what this is. It's a crossover book. It's classic X-Men crossover.
Like this is like fuck any continuity in the books apart from this. We are just making chapter 1 of the story, chapter 2 of the story, chapter 3 of the story. And whatever they were
doing on their own, pause. We're going to do this now. But the interludes were interesting, and I did enjoy them. And then there's a nice interlude that Hickman wrote with Apocalypse and his wife. Forgot his wife's name. It's not Death. It's
Lady Apocalypse.
Yeah, we'll go Lady Apocalypse, whatever her name is. But she wears the golden helm with the crazy Hickman. You know, Hickman has tropes that he goes back to a lot. But that's cool. So yeah, that episode where they go to the backstory of her sort of life apart from him is also really good. But then you get into the actual tournament, and that's where again it surprises you. It does things you don't expect, whether that's killing characters. Changing the rules. I mean, all of it. There's a fucking wedding. I mean, okay. So yeah. I am there for a narrative that surprises me and isn't doing the thing that I thought it was going to do. If it's good, and so far, like you said, it hits and misses, but I think enough of a hit that I'm good. So same page.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I would also say that like it is frequently batshit, and I mean, it's Saturnine. I think whenever you start dealing with the Alan Moore Marvel UK characters, you're always sort of like there's a little bit of whimsy that just is native to those characters. I always applaud moving in the direction of something batshit rather than road, and that is sort of that like you said. Peaks and valleys, but overall the direction is, and I do not know how it's going to resolve.
No, I don't either. That's the thing. Like the way things are going, it's not going well. Like broad strokes, things are not great. But that doesn't mean it's
about Krakoa, and I can't remember the name of the other.
Oh, Araco.
Yeah. I have some theories, but I'll save those for.
So this is what you do on the podcast that you're a part of. Which again, what's the name of this podcast?
Oh, sorry, Pages and Panel, and then we do the greatest comic book of all time that I read this week with Kyle and Jack.
Oh, okay, so they're two separate.
Yeah, so like Pages and Panels is an interview, like they interview creators, mostly indie guys too, and that's a great way if you're like kind of like, oh, I would like to be turned on to different work. It's a great way to like. That's with him and his other co-host Tim, who's a great guy. And then I think once a month we do a comic book club where we take a book. Like for Halloween, we did it in Fidel, and we just sort of like sit and chat it out. But mostly it's just us talking about a particular, like he picks a book and I book a book, and we just chat about why we love it. And the good thing about that for me personally, I mean, I like my co-host Carl. He's a great guy. It's great to sit and just like chat comics with him. He has turned me on to a lot of books that I didn't know about, and like through the series, through the months we've been doing this podcast, like he's just introduced me to a lot of stuff that I genuinely come to love, and that's great. And then it also got me reading comics again, and that like I can't tell you, it's like you go through phases. There are times when you're closer to it, and then times when you're further away, and it's just nice to be back with something that I genuinely love so much, and also has been a very good year for comics, I think.
Yeah, I think certain things have been really good. If you take the business side of it out, and you sort of
that's been a disaster.
Right. But I mean, you take the business side out altogether because that gets muddled and all that. But creatively and story wise, yeah, there have been some really good moments. Queer representation has never been better in comics, I think. In both indie stuff and also mainstream. I'm thinking specifically mainstream, the Marvel Empire stuff with Hulkling and Wiccan, and in indie, there's just so many great examples. I got to pull stuff off my shelf.
Department of Truth.
No, what's that?
Oh, the Image book. Oh my God, it's I forget the guy's name, Al Ewing.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But the art is Matt, who did Friendo. Let me pause there because was holding out on us, and it turns out he is like the heir apparent to Bill Sienkiewicz. Like the art is fucking phenomenal. And not to say the story is good too. Either way, there's also like a character that you would have normally expected to be straight, and there's no reason why he wouldn't. He turns out to be gay, or it doesn't turn out to be. He is just gay. Like I feel like people are starting to do that flip now.
So it's James Tynion is the writer.
Oh, did I say Al Ewing?
Yeah. Well, they're both good. They're both good mainstream writers.
Yeah.
But Tynion, he's queer. I mean, he has done some great work with queer representation, and But Al Ewing is also phenomenal. So I mean, they're both fantastic. Martin Simmons is the guy's name.
Martin Simmons is the artist. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I would. To me, this was the most phenomenal. This put me in a K-hole for like 3 solid days.
Oh, well, comic book K-holes are the kind of K-holes I can handle for sure.
No, because I was like, oh, this guy is fucking. This is like, all right. My little slice of the pie is sort of like, I think, heavily illustrative, like analog work that is a little more on the side of like old books, like the old epic books, rather than the new digital. Like there's a million different forms, and like a lot of digital art looks. It's hard to tell what it is, but so like in that sort of little area, like I like my lane, and I keep an eye on who's in there.
We haven't talked a lot about your own stuff, which is because we both love just talking about random shit. But I did read one of the interviews you did. I forgot it was with. I closed the tab already. But basically, you talk about that, how you're a traditional watercolor guy, and you don't. You've certainly, I think, flirted with the digital, or you've kind of experimented with it. But really, you come back to watercolor, right?
A couple pillow fights in college. Really, that was. No, I do consistently do watercolor. I do more digital. I do more digital work than I think I like people to know, because because that's how you fix a lot of things that you fuck up in watercolor.
Sure.
I think like now I'm kind of like I think like as the book is so like here's the thing. Each issue like. Issue number 1 of Gun was the first comic I had ever done. Obviously, I've been like working on doing stuff all along the way, but that was my first like you sit down and you just make a comic. And then like each issue, you want to do better than the last issue. You want to hey, look at that guy. Each time you're trying to do a better job than the last time, and that gets increasingly harder. So like this is a great example. Like so the what you see there, the scene, the pool, the deck furniture, all that is painted, and then I come in and I put a lot of these sort of like effects and treatments, like the neon. A lot of specular stuff like lighting is for a lot of reasons hard to pull off, and like watercolor is not a medium that works. It's hard to do.
Right.
So like I'll just come in post and add those effects, and also because I like what it makes. It makes this sort of, I think the sort of like the, can I be an asshole? The frisson whenever you take a medium like watercolor. When people think of watercolor, they think pastels, they think landscapes, they think soft colors and a lot of transparency. So the what is fun and interesting then is to take that medium that has these preconceptions and then do it very dense, very dark, with a lot of like, instead of being transparent, being muddy, And I think when you take watercolor, it's frequently thought of as this like it's a very matte surface, and it's when you marry that to digital filigree. Like it just creates something that the eye is not used to seeing, and I think that is exciting, right? Like, it's fun when you see something and you're like, you can't quite work out how it gets made. Like Dave McKeon, so much of his artwork is a blend of artwork and digital manipulation. And I, as a guy who kind of know how some of the stuff gets made, will look at things and be like, I don't know what the fuck this is. Like I don't know how to reverse engineer what he's doing. I
want to show another page here. This is the new volume that I just was starting to read, and I mean this blew me away because it uses this medium in a way that I think it's harder to do digitally. So
thank you so much, by the way.
Hopefully, this doesn't spoil anything. And obviously, if you're familiar with people who are familiar with was it Steranko that did a lot of the trippy and then Kirby before him. Who is it?
Not Sergeant Nick Fury.
Oh, yeah, well, no, you're right. It was Fury. He did that, and then Doctor Strange later.
Yeah.
But both of them, and both different things. Like they really like to play with the medium. This also reminds me very much of Fraser Irving, and I may have said that before. That your style reminds me of that of his work.
Thank you. We just did Fraser. We just did Clarion, the Witch Boy on Greatest Comic Book of All Time. I
fucking love the Clarion, specifically when Grant Morrison wrote him, and Fraser Irving, like the seven soldiers of
victory, or
like totally underrated. Even though at the time people they did appreciate it, but I think it's overlooked as part of one of the best Grant Morrison DC stories, and with such great art. That nonetheless, but so I appreciated seeing. This it's like in a headspace. It's like a trippy dream sequence. Yeah,
there was a little freedom to. Well, there's not freedom. There's an expectation. Like already, a watercolor has a weird look, so you have to double. Like, what's even weirder than that? And also, I want to say, well, it doesn't matter, but enormously difficult.
Oh, it just looks like you'd be doing a lot of just detail work, but also just trying to get done. And then it snaps out back to the style that is your normal approach to guns. So those transitions are stark, but they're necessary because of what's happening in the story. So I really appreciated that in the third issue of Volume 2, which you told me was a great sort of standalone piece, which I like and appreciate, but I am so much more glad I read the first two of that, because not only are characters that I love come back, Sugar Buzz not being one of the most this delightful. Did we? I don't remember. We talked about this before. Drag queen or transgender or some
trans. Although I think can I just flame on?
Yeah.
I modeled her off of a person that I'm familiar with, Linda James. If anybody knows Linda James from the, I think it was she was a character, not a character. She's a person on the gay pimp. What's his name? Johnny.
Yes, McGovern. Johnny McGovern. Yes, the name. I'm like, I know this. Anyway, yes.
So he had he had a podcast in the early days of podcasts, and one of
the greatest podcast of our greatest show of all time, right?
No, I think it was before that. It was. It was I think it was literally the gay pimp.
Okay, yeah.
This is back 15 years, I think.
Yeah.
Linda James was a person who I think it's hard to, I don't feel entirely comfortable speaking about this because I'm not a member of the trans community, and I don't want to take any sort of liberties that are not mine to take. My understanding, it's a very diverse spectrum with a lot of different people who identify in different ways. You have some people who are fully trans, you have some people who are trans, like Peppermint, I think is a good example. A person who sort of lives in both worlds.
Right. Trans woman, also drag queen.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And Linda James is a version of that as well. Or not to speak for Linda James, but like Linda James. So back then, this was sort of my introduction to people who present, who have a feminine persona, are possibly a gay person, but also have a feminine persona. I don't think that Sugar Buzz is not a gay person. Sugar Buzz is a person, is a trans person. She does not say it explicitly. I think it would be disrespectful to say it explicitly, but she is in the race, the slaughter ball, to finance her surgery.
Her gender affirming surgery. Yeah. Okay.
So that's sort of she was a smaller character, kind of just a character who's only supposed to appear in one issue.
Took on a life of her own.
Now she owns the book.
I love it. No, I love it because I love her. I love seeing her. You also have a non-binary character, I believe, Null. Is that?
Yes, Null is a non-binary. Also, I had a differently abled please take this cape and give me a medal.
No.
But I think I got a little bit of salt early on because I am a gay person and I was doing a book about a straight character. Trevor is a straight guy. My argument then was like, oh, but like through Trevor you get Olive, like his love for Olive. I think Olive is the sort of centerpiece of the story, and like, but when I got that criticism early on, I like, well, okay, then like every chance you get, introduce these other fulfill out the cast.
Right. So you got people. I mean, this is interesting to me because my boyfriend and I talk a lot about this. So you had feedback early on because people said, "Well, wait, you're a gay writer. Why are you writing straight people?"
All right. How to?
I mean, I don't feel like, I mean, I don't want you to be misrepresented. I want you to tell me and sort of walk me through this, only because it's an interesting area, and obviously there's a lot of people who are very passionate about this issue.
Well, let me say this. When the book came out, this is 6 years ago. And when I started the book, what I wanted to do is, I started the book was 16 years ago.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to do was I wanted to tell the story of the bad guy in comics. Like, what is his story? Like, we would hear stories about the bad guys, but he was never the guy on the bill. Like, the book was always Green Arrow. The book was always, Daredevil. It was never Bullseye. It was never, the bad guy. And so that was what I wanted to do. And of course, I'm a gay guy, and the character I was modeling, I always thought was coded as gay anyway. Count Vertigo was, a gay guy. The option was like, well, do you want to make him gay? And at that time, 16 years ago, like, this is like Wicked was out, and then maybe Dexter, but the idea of telling the villain story wasn't
right.
Right.
It's a much different era now in comics to have mainstream anti-hero / villain books. Absolutely.
Exactly. So at that time, I was like, I think it's confusing. He's like, will the fact that he's gay steal all of the fire from what I want to tell is the story of being a villain, not being a gay guy. That was why I made the choice then. And I never felt bad about it. Like I said, I've read a straight person. I don't think I think the love scenes are convincing. I don't think that it's, I don't feel challenged on that. But when the book came out, and this is 6 years ago, and I think things have, things are always changing. The only negative press, and I didn't get negative press, but press that was sort of not positive, came from the gay community.
Really?
And in fact, I got called straight. My boyfriend at the time had to in the comments say he's not. And
they just, and so this is where I get frustrated with our own community, because I think sometimes we pick the wrong battles. And so I haven't read this piece. I don't know who did it. That's a whole thing we don't have to go into.
It wasn't a hit piece, and it wasn't.
That's good. That's good.
It didn't say anything negative. It was, it didn't say anything negative. I mean,
it just made assumptions.
It made some criticisms, and I'm thick-skinned. I can take criticisms. They're fine.
Yeah, but I mean, but it made assumptions about your sexuality because of that. Okay. It
did, which I thought was surprising. I mean, I think I don't want to I am very good friends with the person who runs the organization that I reached out to them, and then they sent it to a reviewer. I don't think the reviewer was I don't think this is the reviewer to give this book to. I don't think they like superhero books, also that's not my decision to make, and he's doing me a favor, and that's all fine, and I don't want to be ingrateful in any way, and also not just this particular instance, but just in general, comics press was very welcome. I mean, it's always a struggle, but I got for a book that nobody had heard of from somebody that they had never seen before, I got a lot of positive air. In particular, I also reached out to women who did comics journalism. I thought Olive was a character that, if you're a woman, if you enjoy comics if you're a woman reader who likes comics and superhero comics, I thought there's stuff in here that you'll like. And I wanted to reach out to the audience.
I think Olive is a great character because she is not just a love interest. She starts potentially in that mold and then breaks out right away or very quickly thereafter. she has a lot of agency, and I think that's critical. That's crucial for her and any character is really what it comes down to is agency. They have to have agency. If the minute they fit into this trope, even if it's a valid trope, it still takes away some of that agency and that character ability to do their thing. So I think all of it does that.
Nobody wants to be the girlfriend. May I do a little table setting? Although we're at the hour part. I totally lied.
No. I originally had this plan, and I was going to do an act break and the whole night. No, it's fine. It's fine.
Maybe just set the table. Slaughterball. So the book is Gun. It's about this character, Mr. Twist, Trevor Werner, who's a supervillain. In the second series, Slaughterball, he is in this it's a kind of a cross between Death Race 2000 and Cannonball Run. Like supervillains are in this sort of they're this race where you got two sides trying to get this time bomb called the Slaughter Ball across either to the West Coast or the East Coast of America before it blows up in 7 days. So it's kind of like if you could imagine a football field the size of America, and then everyone's fighting over this bomb. So Trevor gets roped into it. A journalist wants to sort of embed, and Trevor's the guy that he gets connected to. And then along the way, at the end of the first series, Trevor and Olive, who meet apart, as the story begins, we sort of see Trevor again, and we're reacquainted with him and some other good characters. And then finally, Olive returns, and she's also in the race with Sugar Buzz. For me, the book is always better when she's in it. And then Sugar Buzz, like I said, Sugar Buzz was kind of a side character who I thought we were never going to see again. And every issue, she takes more and more real estate. And then who can stop her because she's so great? And so either way, that's and now everyone is caught up.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that a lot because it is a rich world that you paint, and there are a lot of characters that aren't just the main focus, but are in their own rights worlds unto themselves that you could certainly go off and do more with. I love anytime someone tries to bring Hunter S. Thompson into their own world in a way, and you did it in such a delightfully Hunter S. Thompson-y way. The gonzo journalism, a lot of it's very Fear and Loathing. There's echoes of that. Obviously, he's trying to cover the race, and he wants to be there in the race. And we actually have Bill's here. Bill Zanowitz.
Bill Z!
Yep, he is. You're right. Jack is an ace at world building. No question.
Thank you, sir.
But yeah, the Hunter Thompson stuff is delightful.
Can I give you a note on that?
Please.
So I knew that I wanted him to have his voice. So I got a bunch of audiobooks, and there was a guy who was reading. I think it was not like Fear and Loathing, but his letters and some short essays and things like that. Just but he did whoever was narrating was doing Hunter S. Thompson, the character, and he did it so well. So I was listening to that, and then after it was 11 hours long. So after about 8 hours of him being in your ear, those scenes write themselves.
Yeah. No, it's a unique voice, but I think you do a great job of not just making it a gimmick. You really do get that voice in there and present it in prose sometimes and in just dialogue, and it's delightful. It really is. It's a nice flavor, and it makes sense within the world that you've built. Had this Slaughterball thing going on, that you're going to have a journalist covering it, and who better to cover it than the king of gonzo journalism? I also learned something about Japanese culture that I had never encountered before. And I like to think that I'm a student of Japanese culture because I am studying and trying to learn the language, and I've been there a few times. Talk about Dajiban, because I said right? Yeah, I said right.
Yeah, you did right.
Where did you just encounter this in the world? How did you work? It's worked in very seamlessly, and I thought you made it up. So I Googled Dajiban to see if it's a translation of something, and I find this fantastic article about this rich world of competitive van modification racing in Japan.
So it's a race. So all these people are in different cars, and Trevor basically he comes in very late. He's so he has to sort of just get what he can get, and Oh, there's a great monster truck scene where the guy, the differently abled person who is the mechanic, he used to be a like a monster truck racer, and Truckzilla accidentally like crunched his car, and that's why he's in the condition that he's in now. Either way, so like, you know, obviously the car that they're in is going to be a character, and so like in the planning stages, I was like kind of casting about for like, and I wanted it to be something really like. So there's this idea, the whole book, everything in the book is based on this sort of key principle, which is Casanova, the famous lover. Like, he's not a guy who looks like a boy bander. You know, he's not this sort of like just beautiful creature who like walks into a room and women throw their virtue at him. Like, if you think of Casanova as like kind of a regular looking dude, it makes his sort of seduction so much more impressive a thing. And I think if you start behind the eight ball, and then the story isn't like, how do I get from A to B? The story is always, how do I get out from under the eight ball? I think that is, you're always like, there's always momentum and motion in the story. So like, of course you don't want him to be in it. Like, what you would think is like, oh, you put him in a Challenger, you know, you put him in a great, you know, a cool car that's fun and cool to draw. And that, like, sure, that's cool, but it's not great storytelling. Or to me, like, the more interesting storytelling.
You give yourselves more possibilities when you do put the character behind the eight ball, right?
Yes.
I think it's hard. You force the character to problem solve more so than just react and kind of going along with things. If you're giving them a problem, the solution is part of the storytelling. So I get that.
So for the car, I was like, what do we put him in? And then like, I thought, oh, it'd be so great. Cause like, imagine racing in a Dodge Caravan. Yeah. You know, like it's so ludicrous. And then when I started looking for like, I just wanted reference for what do these vans look like? I discovered a link that there was this sort of whole community of racers in Japan who like kit out these sort of like suburban Dodge vans. They call them Dajiban, and race in them. And they are not like, it's not ironic, it's not hipster. They are very serious. And when they truck them out, I'm talking Fast and the Furious. Everything you see, like you can barely see because it's small, but all that white stuff around, all those are bullet points around the van. Though each one of those I got from the Dodgy Band accessory list. Like, these guys are not fucking around. But let me, if I may, so for there's another, you know, like there's 50 cars in this thing. By the way, in the worst of drawing cars, it's been a nightmare. But I was like, there's another one in the current issue that I'm working on, and I found these like insanely decorated Japanese semi trucks. They have can I screen share here?
Maybe. Give it a shot. If you got a button down there, try it.
Oh, let me hold on. Let me make sure I don't have any.
Oh no! We just lost Jack. He bailed out on us. I'm sure he will come right back in. But if you are listening and you, there he is. You were giving me the perfect moment to do an act break. So,
sorry. Let me.
No. While you get set up, see if you can, I don't know, figure the screen share. If you are liking what you're doing, like what you're hearing, like what you're listening to, we do have a great collection of these videos up on our YouTube channel, Flame On Show, on our Facebook page, Flame On Show, on Twitter, blah, blah, blah. But if you like it on YouTube or you like it on the Twitch channel that I have, please like and subscribe. I'm trying to learn more of these social media, modern, new social media things. And the algorithms that determine what gets in front of your eyeballs are all about liking and subscribing. And if it's a podcast, leaving a review or giving you a star rating. These are the magic things that all of the algorithms care about. So if you like it, do that. It'll help us a lot get in front of more eyeballs. So were you able to figure out the screen share?
Let's try it. Hold on. Can I say one thing?
Yes.
What you were just saying about liking and commenting, like, hey, Christmas is coming up. It's so easy. Like, as you hear this, like, don't make a mental note. Do it now.
Yeah.
And he's not kidding. Like, it's such a small thing. It's such a small thing, but it has such a big effect. It's like they would say, like, if you write a letter to your congressman, it speaks for 20 people because of the 20 people who don't, like, or like maybe it's I don't know. But it's the same thing. These little things, it just seems like nothing, but they please like and commenting is the best. Hold on. All right, let's try this.
All right.
Share screen.
Trying to get you the setup button thing you need.
Hold on.
Technology.
Share.
Oh, I see it. I see it. Oh, good Lord.
God. It's like infinite. It's like when you open a mirror into a mirror.
There we go.
So this is, I'm going to scroll. They decorate these
Oh
semis.
my God.
Can you fucking believe this?
Wow.
Look at the inside. This is insane. So just heads up, you're going to see this in issue 7. But
wow.
Let me just look at that guy.
He is so proud. Oh my goodness.
So anyway, one of the things that I like, I've heard other people say that, other artists say this, I hear it all the time. One of the things that's really cool about like when you get to do these things is anything you're interested in, like it's like flypaper. Anything you're interested in can kind of become a part of the book. And like I say, like, oh, I'm doing research, but the fact of the matter is, like, I'm like everyone else. We just go down our little rabbit holes on the internet, and there's always a new weird thing that you're being introduced to. And the book has allowed me to sort of like incorporate that artistically. Like, do you know vaporwave?
Yeah.
Yeah. So is it a style of music or is it an art movement? I'm so fascinated with vaporwave.
Yes.
But then, like, so, like, for the first first issue of the second issue of Slaughter Ball, like, I was doing a lot of research on vaporwave, and like, there's this big fight scene in a mall, and the mall kind of like, I got to sort of like, I got to make one of the characters a synthwave character, and I got to sort of
I did your character names, like there was Edgelord and there was Synthwave, and I was like, oh my God, these are great.
Like anything that you're interested in can sort of like for me, for this, like I'm able to pull all these things in, and I also think that like it just makes the book, you could just have a car there. It's just more interesting when there's like when you can, the worlds expand out and you learn, you get to experience new things. It's an endless joy.
It's funny you talk about vaporwave because I was just watching a documentary the other day. Daniel Lopatin, who is 1-0-Tricks Point Never. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
Okay.
And they did the music to, or he did the music to Uncut Gems, which came out earlier, this year or late last year, whatever.
In the old times.
In the before times, right? So what's fascinating is the documentary. He uses an old Moog. Actually, I don't even know if it's an old Moog, but it's a badass huge Moog, and he's basically, it's like a 20-minute documentary of him showing how he created the. And Uncut Gems is like, it's a hard movie to watch. It's a hard. The Safdie brothers they're auteurs. They like a certain kind of thing that I don't necessarily doesn't work grimy for me, or grimy. Yeah, but the soundtrack that he does is something altogether different, and just by itself, it's excellent. It's so amazing. But yeah, 1-0-Tricks does some great vaporwave stuff. He's just put out a new album out.
I love it. I love the concept more than I will like. You'll go onto Spotify and you'll find yourself in like various playlists.
Yeah.
And I'll get a little lost. I'll be honest.
But
I enjoy the concept about it, and like anything, like all of these things, I think are like they're subcultures, and like in the old days, like when we were younger, I feel like we had pre-internet. There was very limited access to these sort of like the endless rolling expanse of these tiny subcultures and the worlds that they make. Mm-hmm. And through the internet now, like I say the internet, like it's been around for a year. I just think we get this for good and ill, because I think that's also why we have the QAnon problem that we have.
It's, I was gonna say, just as you said that, our buddy James Figueredo, I didn't know this, that the vaporwave aesthetic has been unfortunately co-opted by various far right movements around the world.
Is that true?
I believe him. So this is a very sad realization. But that's, again, like it's the co-opting is good and bad. Like Pepe the Frog. Pepe the Frog no problem. He's, I forgot the guy who created him, but very harmless.
Fury, Matt Fury.
Yeah.
Right.
And then co-opted by everything dark and horrible, and now he's clawing it back. I mean, it's unprecedented in that sense that you have this active creator taking back their creation from these groups.
I think that's less about a life for Pepe beyond what has happened to him, as much as it's just a creator sort of drawing a line in the sand and saying, you're not going to weaponize my own piece in a way that I don't. That is like Bruce Springsteen saying you're not playing Born in the USA or your fucking route, your clan
exactly.
rallies. Yeah. Which I'm sorry, not to I am deeply agnostic about this, because I think in our community, comics in particular, or not, I shouldn't say any creative, any art, you have like nearly godlike control before the release date. Like you can make it anything, you can have it be about anything, it can mean what it means to you, it can mean what it, all, like there can be like just a endless amount of theory, but the minute it sort of is released, then it does change hands, like and what your intention is. Like I think that's Larry.
I was about to say, you made it on camera.
So like, and I like the Snyder Cut, I think ties into this because there is this sort of like, I think for the last couple of years, especially as there's social media where fans interact more, like you hear every fan now, and every fan has a voice, and collectively they can sort of make things happen. So who owns a property,
right,
is a kind of like a question that's constantly sort of being like badmintoned back and forth. The creator does to a degree, the fan does to a degree. Like fan ownership of a thing is like, you can't just say like, oh, because you're not the creator, it doesn't belong to you, because the fans are the people who give it any sort of extended life in the world beyond the creator.
Well, Harry Potter is a good example of this, right? Because we had this situation where Harry Potter has really taken on a life of its own and has so much meaning to so many people that even though the author of Harry Potter, J.K. Rowling, certainly has done some, self-harm with her positions on trans people, specifically trans women.
She dug in.
She and right, instead of being part of the dialogue, decided, no, fuck you kids, I don't care about what you say, I'm gonna just do my thing and stick up. Even if she has her own, and I'm not trying to be dismissive of this either, because she has in her head this fight as far as women's rights and women's things that is for her paramount to everything else.
Right.
And I'm not defending her decision at all to say what she said. But I appreciate that it's more nuanced than just, she's bad, she said bad things. But regardless of if you agree with her or not, Harry Potter as a thing is still existing. I always tell people about Tchaikovsky. So Tchaikovsky, back in the late 1800s in Russia, very difficult life for him because he was a gay man who had very limited options for his own being gay.
The guy who wrote Dance to the Sugar Plum Fairies was gay?
Yeah, I know, right? The guy who wrote all those cannon explosions, but no. So there's a lot of stories about him as an author or as a composer that really don't paint him in a good light as a person.
Yeah.
And it can either be attributed to propaganda about him by the Russian czars at the time, or it can be portrayed as, no, the dude did some bad stuff to people. I mean, he was accused of raping homeless people because that was how he got off. All of that is distant-ish, not even that really, over 130, 140 years ago. But like, history's moved on, and we hear the 1812 Overture, we hear Sugar Plum Fairies, what's Swan Lake. I mean, we hear all of the stuff that he did, doesn't even register. It's like that has been completely separated. So that art did eventually become its own, and it's so it's hard. It's really hard. It's in contemporary space, it's hard for us to decouple those. And then also, like you said, let that thing be. Harry Potter is the thing a lot of gay LGBT individuals use as a totem for themselves.
Very specific. Like what? Yeah, no, That's the. I mean, you know who I feel the worst for are the people who name their daughters Daenerys.
Well, think about George R. R. Martin. Back to a little callback to George R. R. Martin here. Like, he is getting this weird opportunity to potentially like right the wrongs of this TV show. So these kids that are named Daenerys, you know, maybe they'll end up being redeemed. I don't know.
Bryan, I'm so glad you brought that up because that is one of my through this whole thing, the thing that I have found completely the most fascinating. Correct me if I am wrong. I don't think that this has happened yet, where you have a guy or a person who is the writer of a franchise, who has created a franchise, and it exists incomplete. You know, like he's at we're waiting on 6 and 7, and then the sort of adaptation of the franchise overtakes, because like every other instance I can think of, they're done. You know, like the Dune books are all written.
Right.
You know, like there isn't a point where there's a feedback loop. And
well, you know where there is. Do you know where there is? Comic books. And it's because there's no ending, right? But like Superman, you know, Man of Steel comes out, and there's now a conversation between Man of Steel, the movie, and Superman, the comic creation, the X-Men, any of the Marvel Avengers
Marvel
stuff.
Ones, I think, like now Thanos looks like Josh Brolin.
Right.
Or Gamora doesn't look. You know, Gamora now looks like very pretty.
Sultana or whatever. Yeah. But I mean, that's where you have this. It's really almost a conversation, because then the comic writers can sort of see what worked and what didn't, and then adjust and sort of tell the stories that either leverage or choose to reject what was put in the movies.
I think that's a little. I would push back on that only in this sense, is that you have a medium that it's like Oklahoma and Texas. Comics just don't generate a ton of money, or or have the reach of movies, and then movies generate billions and reach worldwide audiences.
Absolutely.
So the comic becomes a slave to the movies.
It does.
And that's for example, we were talking about the sort of fucked up nature of comics in the last 5 or 6 years from the big two. And I like Doctor Strange, and this is not a diss on Doctor Strange. But in a normal world, under normal circumstances, you do not have 4 Doctor Strange titles on the racks in a given month.
Yeah, no, exactly.
And so there's this way in which the comics had to become sort of support structures for the movies, in a way to sort of bring movie money back into the comic, into the publishing field. So I get it and I understand it, but I also chafe at it a little, because it's Disney, and by Disney I mean also big moneyed interests getting to say what our comics are rather than
sure. But you know what I've seen, and specifically with Iron Man in this case, and I forgot the guy who's writing him, but he's the showrunner from *Halt and Catch Fire* on AMC.
Oh wow!
The new Doctor Strange writer, new Iron Man writer. He's actually been one of the first to really dial it back from it being a pastiche on what's his name, Robert Downey Jr. Whereas so many writers during the high days of the Marvel, first wave, second wave, whatever wave, were basically just dialing in Tony to be Robert Downey Jr. So you do see occasionally these, and I think it's because comics have such a smaller attention, distribution, whatever. And of course, you take, the Avengers, they've taken Iron Man, spoilers, off the stage, so to speak, they now can kind of do something that's different. So I think it's a conversation, but I do take your point 100%.
No, and let me also say, I've always thought Iron Man was the most boring character. Because in the world of comics, where you have people who shoot eye lasers and things like that, like a guy who's a robot is very that's
he's our Batman, but without all the style. I
think the movies did kind of rescue him. All the events, this is the thing with the Marvel versus DC thing that kind of drives people crazy. Everybody knew the super friends. Everybody knows Aquaman, Batman, Wonder Woman. These are characters that people don't. I don't think a lot of people, the layman, I don't think he knew the Avengers. He didn't know Black Widow. He didn't know, and they the Marvel Cinematic Universe did an amazing job of sort of taking these characters that we almost tabula rasa, and then really building them up to people. And now everyone, you got people. If you had asked me 10 years ago, our grandma's gonna know Star Lord? I would have been like,
right?
No.
So Groot is another good example. So I play Fortnite, which some people love to harass me about the fact that I play this 14-year-olds. Okay, so I don't know. I don't know if you play it now, but like they're doing this whole season of Marvel.
It almost brought me back. I almost came back to the Galactus was
Galactus is actually en route to the Fortnite world. They did a comic tie-in to Donny Cates' Thor storyline with the Black Death, Black Wind, whatever the end of the world thing. So Null. It's basically
Null.
Null.
Is this a different Ragnarok?
Yeah, it's yet another Ragnarok, right? Which I actually kind of like that title, Yet Another Ragnarok. I gotta do something with that. But if you want to do something with it, feel free. So they've really tied it in. It made it a whole thing. The guy who runs the Fortnite development, something Mustard, his last name is Mustard. He's like saying that this is like not just a one-off season. They're going to be using Marvel characters going forward, and they're trying to build basically this nexus of all these different properties. So they've got Ghostbusters, they've got DC, they've got Marvel. They're doing the thing where they bring all the toys into the sandbox and letting them interact.
Yeah, which I think is to the good.
It's great. But to that point, a lot of kids and a lot of even their parents who play Fortnite, other than the Marvel movies, but they're interested in now because of the Marvel movies. Groot was like nothing before Abnett and Lanning made him a thing, right? in our very recent, comic reading history, and now the world knows who Groot is. These little kids playing Fortnite know who Groot is. It's to the credit of Daniel Feige and all the creators that were involved and all the properties that really like the Abnett and Lanning Guardians. I mean,
On that, if you enjoyed the Abnett and Lanning Guardians, they did. So like Legion of Superheroes is a long property with it's like SNL. There are great golden ages, like great 2-year periods, and then deserts. But there are two high points. One is Abnett and Lanning. They kind of just took it over and made it their own thing, and that was, I think, because then they here's the thing. I love the Legion. It's a love-hate because it's also frequently so bad, and I just cannot understand how something as paint by numbers as space opera. How do you fuck up space opera when you're DC Comics? I can understand if you're like, oh, we don't really get our arms around this,
right?
But like you guys do, and yet they have consistently not been able to, or very. But so everything that was great about the Marvel Cosmic Heroes through Abnett and Lanning, that same thing for DC. They're just a phenomenal run. So if you ever wanted to peek your head in, that is a great place to start. Or just if you like their work, I thought that was them working at their best.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I need to get more up on my Legion. I know the Great Darkness Saga is one that everybody.
Whoa!
Controversial opinion there. Wow, I've heard no one ever say that.
That's not terrible. It's like everything. I think like when you read the Judas Contract, you sort of have to put you have to situate your mind, and like comics were a little different back then. I think the Judas Contract is great.
I understand what you're saying though.
But there's I mean, all right, gloves off. The Great Darkness Saga is objectively terrible.
Really? Is that Levitz? Yeah. Is that Paul Levitz who did that one? I don't remember now.
It is Paul Levitz. I think it's Levitz and Giffen. Keith Giffen is sort of always in there.
Yeah.
Either more in the foreground or more in the background, but always involved in some way. And it's not. I shouldn't say that. It even for comics of the time, there's a lot of. It's creaky.
I gotcha.
I think if you go back and you read the Dark Phoenix saga, it's
there's moments too. Yeah. Well, so
of its time, but
speaking of this, do you know that Claremont's getting an ongoing X title?
I saw something that I didn't know about. What is it?
Yeah. I don't either. It's very early. Like they just announced it. It's in continuity, so it's not like it's
How is that going to work?
Well, this is the thing. The last time Marvel did this, it was X-Men Forever, and it was garbage. And I love Claremont. I absolutely do. I think his stuff with the X-Men specifically and Excalibur is some of my favorite stuff at all. But you go back and you revisit it, like you say, and you kind of go, ooh, how did this work? And how did I not see the BDSM influence here? Like, that's
the BDSM is Storm gets treated poorly. I'll let that rest there.
But like, no, there's very much like a sort of like, modern storytelling. It's just like modern movie making is different than, the classics. And so you go back and you have to kind of turn your brain into a different mode to really engage it. But even then, you sit there, and if you're critical of storytelling or you like storytelling yourself, you see the flaws. Yeah. Whereas when you first experienced it, you didn't have that critical brain whatsoever. It was all just, oh my God, this is amazing. And it's, yeah. So yeah, I totally take that. Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't start with it. It's worth, because it's such a, also it doesn't affect the Legion very much.
Okay. Well, I like it because I'm a New Gods guy. I love the New Gods. Like anything New Gods, even when it's like Death of the New Gods, and it was like, what's his name's like Jim Starlin's like worst thing. Yeah, he could have done
a sequel to it.
Okay.
So like Legion sort of had this long continuity, and then they sort of wrapped it up in a way, and then did like a 5-year gap, and then after the 5-year gap, they relaunched it, and you sort of like, you slowly through the course of like, I think 30 or 40 issues, you re-meet all these characters who have sort of like, it's a diaspora, the Legion diaspora, as they spread across the galaxy. And it was great because like it was I think Keith Giffen and the Beer Bombs, but they bring Darkseid back for that, and that, not to be spoilery. So if you are Darkseid, at the end of sort of like at the 30th century mark, what is your problem? Your problem is, how the fuck do I kill myself?
Yes.
So that's
okay.
That's where
all right,
and which I think is like that's the interesting Darkseid story.
No, well, yeah. No, I definitely agree, because Darkseid, I think some of the best stuff with Darkseid is where Darkseid wins, like Final Crisis.
Yeah.
Or when Darkseid is like, existential crisis Darkseid. I've heard Justice League Odyssey is also interesting, because they kind of did like reboot Darkseid as a kid. They did that whole, kind of like they're doing with Kid Cable, I guess, but they have the young, and he's making mistakes, but he's kind of a good guy. And I didn't get into it, but I do want to revisit that at some point.
I didn't read it, so I can't recommend. But
yeah, no, I did the same thing. So we should dial this back, because I do want to come back to Parliament House, of all things that we have tangented on.
All roads lead back to.
Before we started recording, I had to break the news to you that Parliament House in Orlando, a gay institution, 45 years serving the gay queer community in Orlando, closed. I mean, serving them, whether it's looks, whether it's food, whether it's STDs, drugs. I mean, you've got a lot to choose from here. But you have some experience there at the Parliament House, is my understanding, right? Or experiences.
Yes, I do. Well, I also, as you mentioned, from Florida. I lived in Tampa, so do your listeners... So, all right, an oral history of the Parliament House. Situated in Orlando, in the shadow of Disney World.
The shadow of Disney World. So, this is okay. Hold on, let me stop you there, because so many people who've never been to Florida think, right, Disney World is equivalent to Orlando.
Oh yeah, no.
And so when you say shadow of, what we're really saying is metaphorical shadow, because it is so far away from Disney World that, the people who would... I have a dear friend, Chantel Roche, and she not only is a fantastically famous drag queen, if you've seen the Pageant documentary. It's on Amazon, I believe.
I haven't.
With Pork Chop. And it's all about the pageant world, which came out a while ago. But anyway, so Chantel is a cast member, or I have to check to see if she's still a cast member. Honestly, she might not be, because they had all the crazy layoffs, right?
Yeah.
But she would have to do that commute back and forth, and she was very clear, to tell me.
I think Disney keeps the I-4 in a state of constant chaos. Just because they want sort of like when you finally hit that nice road where you're going to go to the Disney off-ramp, like it's like psychological warfare. They're like, things are getting better now. Because the I-4 has been garbage since I was 6.
Same, right? It keeps you in the Disney bubble. So Disney World, as it's defined, is basically Kissimmee, which is sort of southeast west. It's south of Orlando proper. It's southeast, I guess, technically. But it's big. It's huge. It's probably, I don't know this is true, but it consumes a lot of real estate. It was probably bigger than in the Orlando like city proper itself. So it's a huge community with all the parks and all the hotels and all that stuff. So yeah, but Parliament House was originally built as a motor lodge. So,
right. So it has that form and the courtyard, and then like small, not like a Days Inn, not a Hilton.
It's
like
not a Hilton.
Smaller. So it was like so people would stay there. And then there was like an entertainment complex which had like your usual, like it had a couple. I think was there a piano bar?
So there's the main disco. We'll call it the disco. Like, they call it the disco bar.
Music. Yeah.
There's a video bar, and so there's been different incarnations, but this is the more recent one that unfortunately now is the last one. So big disco bar with a stage, video bar, kind of like video screens, whatever. Then they have the piano bar. There's a cafe, there's a restaurant there. I don't know if you ever had their food. It's actually not bad. But
I haven't had their food.
One of my friends, Anthony, actually was the restaurant manager for a long time, then became the resort manager. But yeah, so solidly better than you expect food. Then there's the drag bar, and then the back bar is the bear bar.
The Full Moon Saloon.
Well, then the Full Moon was next to the Parliament. Directly
So-
north, conjoined on the same property. Well, not on the same property, but next to it. And that was the bear epicenter of Orlando for years and years and years. And I'm guessing you went there as well.
Dare say the world? Like
so there are definitely communities like Parliament or Provincetown. There are areas where they would challenge that.
Was Provincetown a bear like to my recollection as a young gay? So as I said, 46. So like when I started going out, that would have been like 1997, 8, the end of the 90s.
Okay, yeah, that's about when I would start. Yeah.
So at that point in gay history, bears, now ascendant, back then were a smaller community.
Yeah. Oh, very small.
I would say that there were no bear bars. There might be a bear night, but not a lot of bear nights either. I don't think bears were the sort of like island of misfit toys of the gay people. Like, gays in the 80s and the early 90s had sort of like, they were riding high on Madonna, and they were, like there was a gay look, and it was like, remember that was abs and being shaved and, like CK1 models, like that was.
Yep.
Like the guys who did not fall into that mode, for a zillion different reasons, so the bear bars were like, I only knew the only bear bar, like where I lived in Tampa, 2 hours away on the Gulf Coast. If you wanted to go to a bear bar, you had to go to like Full Moon Saloon was the only one. When I was younger, obviously that changed over time.
It's changed, but it's not necessarily still like, it's not common. Like you go to a lot of cities, they don't have a bear bar. They might have a place that's mixed. They may have a bear night, but there are a lot of places that don't. LA, I know, has good bear clubs. I know San Diego certainly has got a couple that are decent.
Represent.
What's that?
Represent.
Yeah, right. Seattle, I have only been to the Eagle here. And so you also do get the crossover between the bear and the leather communities. And they're not necessarily the same either.
No, the leather and Levi bar by default becomes the bear bar.
Right, 100%. Yeah.
And then usually you have your dance bar. You have bars, where people just go to drink. You have dance clubs where people go to drink and dance. And then you might have a leather and Levi's.
And what Parliament did that isn't like completely like, there are other places that have done this. They brought it all together in one place. And so you had Full Moon for a while. Full Moon closed, and then the back Western bar in Parliament became the Bear Bar, the Bear Den. And then the dance club is also more twinky or older. It's a mix. So Parliament, of all the bars I'd ever went to, felt the most like accessible because it was so mixed, so many different communities all congregating together, even if they would still go off and kind of do their cliques, as
well, so like the Powerpuff Girls, like the Sugar and Spice and everything nice, but the Element X, I think that is the sort of Full Moon Balloon influence. Because
I think that's the Poppers, actually. I think that's the Element X in there. Well, you go to like the bar and you're like, what is that smell? And you're like, oh, it's Poppers. Okay, there's two
Element X's. I think the influx of the bear community made it because I think it brings in a different element, and I think like no shade also makes it a little cruisier. And then when you also double that with a place where people are when we say the Motor Lodge, literally part of a trip to Parliament House would just be trolling around, peeking in and I say peeking, usually the windows were wide open.
You didn't have to peek, it's just balcony bingo is what we always called it, right? You would walk the balconies and you would just look in the room because the curtains were wide open, and you would kind of go, all right, let's go in here and see what this is about. Now, I say I would never, and this is unfortunately one of the things I can't legitimately, I can't even have this false modesty. I never did see a room and just wander in, not uninvited, because they definitely were trying to invite people, right? But I never went and had that experience. The closest I would do is I had friends that were staying there for like the Bear Run, Bear Bust, right? And they would have it at Parliament House. They'd have people staying there. They'd have rooms. So I actually hosted a game night at one of those. And so I had the curtains open, and I had a bunch of fucking board games out and cards and all us nerdy bears and whoever showed up. And we're just sitting there doing that for balcony bingo. And I think we had a lot of people looking at us like they knew we had it wrong somehow. But yeah, what was one of your... do you remember anything specific about Parliament? Was there one adventure or one night that just was like your perfect Parliament experience?
I had several. So for me, like going out around town in Tampa, like it was always going to be an extra special night when you went to. I think it's like if you live in LA going out to Vegas, you're like it's going to be an extra drive.
Oh yeah,
and the drive makes it a little more exciting.
Yeah.
So like it was always like you're up for a night of adventure when you would go out to the Parliament House. I met I met a guy that I dated there. So that was all. Like when you meet somebody and it goes really well. That's always a nice, that's always magic when that happens. And we, continue to see each other. He lived in St. Augustine, which is, for people who don't know, up on the other coast. So
wow.
So frequently we would go to meet and hang out in Orlando because it was halfway between the two of us. I had one night with, there's a guy that so in Tampa, in my city in Tampa, we had our Leather and Levi's place. I think it's 2606. It was a building, no windows. 2 kids went missing in there to a serial killer. It's crazy.
Oh my God, I didn't know that.
I'll give you some notes after the Steve Lorenzo.
Okay.
But so like as you can imagine, like going there was like kind of going to the circus. And like one night I was there, and there's just this like hot guy, and like they are never like they're annoyed from the minute they get in, like everyone, like it's like 1,000 arrows are converging on them. That night I was going through this phase where I was just crazy for like, don't judge, but like Outback chicken wings. I don't know if you've ever had them, but they had this sort of, they called it the kookaburra sauce, when they would make a bloomin' onion, that little batter that they would have it in. They would also put their chicken wings in that batter. I grew up in Florida. You have to excuse me. It's my Tampa coming out.
Okay.
So like I was insane for these chicken wings, and like I would just eat them all the time. And so like I had like a healthy helping of these chicken wings, and then like my 2606 and this like really foxy kid, but I keep burping up this chicken wing, like because like I'm having beers and then there's burp and like,
yep.
Like
we've all been there.
He was like, "You smell that?"
Oh no! Whoa, what's that? I think that was that guy. Yeah,
I bumped into that kid at Parliament House, and I was like, I don't know. It was also near the water.
There's a beach. It's on a lake. Yep.
No, I have. That's like Here's what I think. I think like this is something that it's hard to translate. Like a thing that is true about gay culture that is hard to translate to people who aren't gay, or even our advocates and our allies, is just that like so much of the best parts of gay culture are filthy, dirty, raunchy. So like
This is why our like John Waters is so important to the gay community. I mean,
and I don't mean to say like yourself. I would not walk into a person's room and have sex with this. All no judgment on anybody who chooses.
No, I'm not saying it as like I'm actually sad I never had that experience.
I have, everyone has their boundaries. But I think also like there's a certain amount, like I think just the particularly more so in our youth, there was so much. I think people were dealing with so much internalized homophobia and internalized and externalized. Let's be honest. That I think that it was always working itself out in these crazy ways, particularly obviously sexually, and so you had people who had like a persona by day and then like a release at night.
Oh yeah.
And sometimes it was Jekyll and Hyde, and frequently alcohol was the only way certain people could access that part of their personality. And a fun night of adventure is going to be at this sort of sort of skanky hotel. You know what I mean?
When
don't
you
know
go,
where the night is going to take you.
I think Vegas is a great analogy because there are parts of Vegas where if you want a very pristine experience, you can just keep that, right? But the real Vegas and the real Parliament,
off-roading.
You want to go off-roading. You want to get a little wrecked on whatever shit your Long Island iced teas in Parliament, at least. And you want to go gonzo, and you want to do this crazy experience. And I am glad that we both had that experience to share, that we both have had those adventures. And it's a sad day that, I mean, honestly, in this world, especially with COVID, but even take COVID away, there is just not as much of those kind of spaces for people to really have that I don't even know, that off-roading experience or whatever. It's few and far between.
I hear you, but I think this is that whole Jurassic Park, nature will find a way. Perversity will always
well, that's true.
There will every wall can have a glory hole drilled into it. Ink will endure. So that's the I'm sad to but it should pass. I see these kids. Oh, I see this man yells at cloud. I see these kids excited about Masters of the Universe toys or even Star Wars. And it's no, you guys should have your own new shit.
Yeah.
Recycling our stuff for you sucks.
Yeah.
And I think so in the spirit of that, it's sad. It's sad that your favorite sitcom has to end. It's sad that your favorite band has to break up. It's sad that, but new stuff comes in, and that's
that's true.
The circle of cruising.
A lot of the circle of cruising. I mean, cruising is making a comeback in certain weird ways. Have you seen the masks that have the hanky code, kind of as part of the mask, or you can? Oh no, that's what it was. There was the masks that looked like hankies, but then they were the little. You could put a little extra hanky attachment on your mask, so that when you would go to the Eagle in the COVID era, you could still flag. With that, it's insane. I don't know. I love that we have these weird experiences, and I'm excited for all these businesses that are closing. I'm not excited. I'm very sad to see this, but I do feel like it is opportunities being born for people to bring in new culture and new opportunities and new things into the world that we can all explore together and find what we like. So it's a rebirth. Well, this is a year is the dark year before the next year of the rebirth, right?
Yes, I completely. And also this is a thing we're learning the hard way in California. You have to allow the dead branches. You have to clear out the dead branches.
Yeah. Literally dealing with that, right? And because your smoke was killing us up here. Let me tell you, I had a solid week of air that I was. But
quality.
Oh my God.
I think this is that's that. You have to
clearing the brush.
Yeah, and it makes me sad. I think comics is particularly negatively impacted by these guys were not set up not to speak for all, but these guys were not set up in a great way financially to begin with, and like these are also businesses that can't afford to go 2 and 3 months without their standard, the regular stuff that like, I mean, a guy that I know who runs a shop out here, who like does very well. He's in Santa Monica. Like he like thank fucking God for Hoxpox, like because that is what like made him not get out of the red. Or I never know. Is it go into the red, out of the red?
Go into the red.
Yeah. So like
red is bad. Universally, red is just bad.
So like I think these guys, even the guys who are successful, it's just not. It's hard. It's a real challenge. And like restaurants, every day I see somebody's like, oh, pour one out for X place, my favorite place to get a drink or to go get brunch. It bums me out, and it deeply, because wherever you see a business, there's a person, several people behind it, So
yeah, no, it's a weird time, but let's end on a positive note that next year is that year of rebirth, and that we're gonna see Gun Volume 3. Right,
we will.
I'm not going to say when, because I'm not going to enable these people to come after you. But I think you will say confidently next year.
Yeah, no. In fact, one of the things that I wanted to do, that I am doing, is sort of like I thought, wouldn't it be? I got this from Kate Bush. Kate Bush, notoriously like you'll get it when you get it. So she like had this long 12-year gap, and released an album after like a 12-year gap. And then out of the blue, 9 months later, released another one in the same year, which was, and they talked to her in interviews, like, oh, we don't hear from you for very long, and then now you do 2 in 1 year, and she's like, oh, I just thought people would get a laugh. And I thought like, oh, it would be so great to like, take a year to put an issue out, and then like, let's say 3 months later, the next one.
I think I actually do appreciate that when artists have taken a while and then they finally release something, and then it's like not even 6 months later, here's another one. There you go.
Yeah. So like, I
do love also the sort of surprise, there's a new album out that no one has talked about or no one knew was coming. So yeah, I'm gonna put up here at the bottom. If you want to experience Gun for yourself, guncomic.com is probably a good start, right?
Yeah, and guncomic.com, and then like if you want to put this in the show notes, just go to guncomic.com/ here, I'll put it in chat, free gun 1, and you can get a free
the letter or the spell it out, like free gun the number 1 or free gun 1.
Hold on, let me
just do it. Yeah, in chat.
Boy, I wish I was a professional.
Got it. No, that's good. I want to make sure. Free gun.
Yes, it is the number 1.
Gun,
yeah, Free Gun Volume 1 should be
like that.
Yes. So if you go there, you can get a free digital download of Volume 1. The Slaughter Ball series is not. We haven't collected it in an edition yet. That'll be next year. But this will introduce you to Trevor Olive and Sugar Buzz in particular. Yeah. Thanks. And also like check out Pages and Panels podcast, greatest comic book of all time. We haven't picked our comic book club book, but when we do, we'll post on it. Oh yeah. Oh, and I'm at The Villainist on Twitter. Do you have words that you can never spell? Villain is one for me. Was it IAN or AIN?
Which one is it?
So it is AIN. Yeah, I know. Like, once you start thinking about it, you're like, oh. So it's Villain, The Villainist. Follow me on Twitter if you like. I'll follow back.
Did I get it right? At The Villainist?
You got it absolutely right. Every time I type it, I'm like, I have to put it into the dictionary.com.
Oh yeah. No, thank God for Google for spell check alone, right? And also, of course, go ahead.
No. Also synonym.com. Synonym.com. Also
synonym.
Can't tell you how often as a writer that saves my bacon.
And of course, as we talked about earlier, if you want to see more about Flame On Show, I think the YouTube channel is a great way to see this content. This is up now on YouTube, so you can always go immediately back and look at it. And we'll have audio coming out of our podcast channels, and that's flameonshow.com. And then also, if you're watching on Twitch, I am doing more of a Twitch lately. In addition to these Monday series we're doing, I do my Japanese lessons. I do Fortnite nonsense. I just did a virtual beer tasting on Saturday night. So I'm trying to put more, stuff out there for those kids on the Twitch.
Was it a flight or was it a one to just?
So, Rogue Beer, Brewing in Oregon. They this what's it called? Rockstar Brewing or Rock. They do like these virtual beer tastings. So they send you like I think it was like 10 beers, some tall, some regular cans.
Oh my god, you were shit faced after that.
Well, no, because I don't know. I didn't. I don't, honey. I don't. I swallow. No, it was some of the beers were IPAs, some of the beers were high ABV. None of them were too high. But anyway, so I didn't finish. I finished like maybe 3 or 4 of them. But I would do like half of them, or I would share them with my boyfriend or whatever. So yeah, but yeah, these events are really cool. I did one for Stone Brewing, I participated in one that Stone Brewing did. They're all on YouTube, so you can go, and then they feature local musicians too from the areas that the breweries are in.
Oh,
it's awesome. It's a little bit of both. They talk about the beer, the process, meet people. Anyway, in this era of COVID, I am all about as we were talking before, the virtual events that. Give you a chance to participate in something you may not otherwise have been able to do before.
I think that's if we can keep both of those, when we can do in-person things, but also still.
I think that's going to happen.
Me too. I'm excited about that.
I actually wonder how many, and I don't want cons to go virtual. Like I want cons to have a virtual option, but going to a con should never be replaced with the virtual con experience. If you can go, you should go to experience the con atmosphere and meet people in person and go to the bar where all the writers and cartoonists are hanging out. Like critical experiences for comic book fans, right?
Yes, I think the thing that we may have learned this year is that a fandom, I think, really taught. Like a lot of stuff that is not fun at cons, that takes up a lot of space and makes it so crowded. Just make that an online experience. There's an easier way to watch a trailer.
I will never ever wait in line for Hall E in San Diego ever again because of this year. I mean, effectively.
No, when I've been at con, I find out through alerts on my phone all the stuff that people do. I never see it live. Like, very rarely is the, So, and it would be nice.
Hall H. Hall E or Hall H? Hall H.
Hall H is that's the big. That's the.
I did it one time for Doctor Who. Never again. Ever. Not worth it. Not at all.
Bryan, thank you so much for having me on. This was such a delight. I look forward to it. I knew it would be. That you are. I wish we could have gone on for another hour.
Oh my God, we totally could, and I would happily do that. Except that I know my boyfriend's probably like, "What's going on? You're supposed to."
No, I know. Dinner. I gotta get my dinner's.
Yep, we're the same place.
May I come back when we finally get 7 out?
You never have to even think otherwise. You have a standing invitation, and even if it's not gun related, we should definitely maybe if you need a special guest on your shows coming up about movies or comics or anything,
absolutely.
We've totally on board.
About doing a Crisis on Infinite Earths podcast with other.
Bring the comic book bears, Flame On. And your panels and all of that just it's those are fun. No, but you of course anytime you want to come on, I mean, just say the word, we'll make it happen.
Thank you so much, Bryan.
And thanks so much for your time. And again, everyone go to I just gonna put it back up because I'm gonna forget. Guncomic.com free gunvol1 for a free copy, and you guys are gonna you're gonna love it. You're gonna then start begging for more, harassing Jack. When is it ready? Give me more gun.
When is 7 coming out?
But anyway, thank you so much, Jack. I will talk to you very soon.